And we have had, obviously, we've had an invasion going on in America in the last year or so, hyper-invasion. And since just last fall, 100,000 illegal immigrants coming across the border. More recently, we're aware of a flood of teenagers, young children coming across, many of them unaccompanied. And the fact that this kind of activity is going to be costing jobs, going to be lowering wages. 60 to 100,000 young people will be coming here and have come, will in the coming months here. I want to make a little bit of a comment and then get your comment, and I want to play a couple of sound bites as well. And what's going on is basically the Cloward and Piven plan, which has overwhelmed the system. Let me make a couple statements and get your response here. But Cloward and Piven, Richard Cloward and Frances Fox Piven, actually were a married couple. She still's around. They were very active in the 1960s. They made the suggestion that the best way to bring America into complete socialism, they'd prefer Marxism, but we'll start with socialism, is to overwhelm the system and have everything economically collapse. And starting with immigration, we'll have the immigration system collapse so that the nation has to completely take care of all of these immigrants. Same with health care, single-payer health care. We can get into that later. I want to play a couple of sound bites. I want to start with Glenn Beck with his comments about this Cloward and Piven overwhelm the system. And then I want to get your comment, please.
Cloward and Piven had a split. They were radical Columbia professors in the 1960s who believed in change and social justice. They were inspired by the riots in Los Angeles in 1965, and they wrote and published their article which outlined the best way to bring the type of Sololinsky social change to America. In their estimation, back in the 60s, overwhelmed the system. But SDS, they had radicals, and they said, no, we want to bomb things. They said, no, do it the smart way. Overwhelm the system and bring about the fall of capitalism by overloading the government bureaucracy with impossible demands and bring on economic collapse. Cloward and Piven instructed their activist that if a crisis didn't exist, think of this, promote or manufacture one by exaggerating some unthreatening predicament. Does healthcare come to mind, where we've got doctors pulling out tonsils and cutting off patients' feet? Really? How about global warming? Well, their methods have worked for years. From 1965 through 1974, due to the strategy and effort of Cloward and Piven and their followers, the total recipients on welfare rocketed from 4.3 million people to 10.8 million. In 1975, there were nearly 1 million welfare recipients in New York City alone. That year, New York City declared bankruptcy.
And one more soundbite here. This is Megyn Kelly interviewing Andrew McCarthy. Same topic, very short bite.
Washington Times had an editorial today talking about how this influx threatens to transform the nation. They say this is a man-made disaster, but they say that this threatens to transform the nation. Do you believe that?
I believe the nation's being transformed, and I think that this is a component of it, but I'm not even sure that this is the biggest component of it. I really took the president seriously when he said that he wanted to fundamentally transform the United States of America. That's not me saying so. That's what he said he wanted to do. I think he's gone about that in a variety of ways. Immigration's a big part of how he did it, but I sort of think what we're seeing now is the old Piven-Cloward strategy applied to policy. This is this idea that you overload the system with crisis, and the system has a limited amount of capacity to deal with one crisis at a time. So we're now at a point where you get the EPA, and then you have the Taliban, and now you have student loans, and then the next day we have an immigration crisis. We can't deal with this. Washington is not equipped to deal with it, and this sort of opens up the area for the president to come in with executive power and try to resolve everything. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to like the way he resolves it.
John Terry, I think you agree with those sound bites. My question beyond that would be, this is the obvious attempt to overthrow capitalism. Do you think that's possible?
Jan, what we're seeing, really, and I echo the comments that we're hearing from the two clips that you played. I was listening to a talk show a couple of days ago, and they were talking about this, just the immigration area itself. If we skip all the other areas that we talk about with health care, student loans, global warming, skip all of the other issues that are becoming all of these crises of the week in Washington. If we just focus on immigration alone, one of the things that it was being talked about now is what's being called the Bosniazation of America. And if you think about what happened over in Eastern Europe when we saw the Bosnia crisis a few years ago, where we had all of these different sects that came together. And one of the unique things about the American dream, if we look back just a few years ago to the immigrants that came over, they came over to assimilate and to lend their talent to make America a better place. Today, because of this Cloward-Piven strategy that we see being implemented, people are coming not for what they can give to America, but for what they can get from America. You know, these kids that are coming, we heard just a few, back in June, the number was at 50,000. Then we got a surprise that, it wasn't just 50,000 kids. There were over 250,000 when we counted the adults and all of the others that came with them that we forgot to tell you about. There was recently an ad that we saw in a California paper offering up to $6,000 a month to simply put illegals in your home and care for them while they're there. The average illegal child that comes in, and all of these 50,000 children that are coming in, under the current rules of the system, it takes 3 to 5 years to get them in front of a judge, and all the while they're on the government dole. The more this crisis continues to escalate at a time when we have the lowest number of people employed that we have seen since World War II, is going to put a financial strain on the system that has the potential to break the system. And if you're looking at implementing a Cloward-Piven strategy, which in essence was really a guaranteed annual income paid by the government to everyone as, quote, a way to end poverty, we're really pushing the envelope to try to break the system, fundamentally transform America in a way that could really make America not the America that most of us have grown to know and appreciate and love,